What does Tzeentch actually want? It sounds like a simple question. In Warhammer 40,000, almost nothing is ever simple. Tzeentch is the chaos god of change, ambition, sorcery, lies, manipulation, mutation, hope, and impossible plans nested inside even more impossible plans. He is the architect of fate, the Great Conspirator, the being blamed whenever events seem too intricate, too ironic, or too perfectly disastrous to be accidental. And yet if you ask what he truly wants, the answer slips away the moment it seems close enough to grasp. Maybe he wants power. Every god in the warp hungers in its own way. Maybe he wants the fall of empires, the corruption of heroes, the spread of sorcery, the endless flowering of plots. Maybe he wants to overthrow his rivals. Maybe he wants to win the great game that the chaos gods play against one another through mortal civilizations and immortal servants. But there is a problem with every neat answer. Tzeentch is the god of change itself. If change is as nature, then an ending may be the one thing he can never desire for long. Victory would stop the game. Completion would kill possibility. Total control would mean no uncertainty, no twisting fate, no final reveal, still waiting in the dark. So tonight, we are going to do something both straightforward and dangerous. We are going to try to understand the motives of the most elusive power in the warp. We will look at what the canon tells us, what his demons do, what his mortal followers chase, how his influence appears in the Imperium, among xenos, and across the long history of the setting. And by the end, the answer may not be a single goal at all. It may be something stranger. Tzeentch may want wanting itself. He may want the universe to remain unfinished forever. To understand that, we need to begin where all the chaos gods begin, in the warp. The warp is not just another dimension, in the way a second room is another room. It is a sea of psychic energy, emotion, thought, and reflected meaning. It is shaped by sentient life, and in turn, it shapes sentient life back. Fear, rage, despair, excess, ambition, hope, and countless other impulses do not merely exist in mortal minds. Over time, in the roiling tides of the Imperium, they gather weight. They form currents, predators, storms, and eventually powers vast enough to become gods. Tzeentch emerges from that process as the concentration of change, intrigue, and the restless urge for a different tomorrow. He is fed not simply by deception and magic, but by aspiration. That detail matters. Khorne is easy to misunderstand as only slaughter. Nurgle is easy to misunderstand as only disease. Slaanesh is easy to misunderstand as only indulgence. Tzeentch is often reduced to plotting, but canon consistently ties him to hope as much as treachery, to the dream that tomorrow can be better, that one can rise higher, that current limits are not final. The cruel beauty of Tzeentch is that the same force that drives a scholar to seek wisdom, a revolutionary to imagine reform, or a desperate worker to pray for a better life, can also feed the god whose gifts twist minds and flesh into monstrous new forms. That is the first key to the question. Tzeentch does not only want destruction. He wants movement. He wants flux. He wants every stable order made uncertain, every certainty opened, every hierarchy challenged, every fate rewritten, every conclusion denied. He thrives wherever reality is still negotiable. This is why Tzeentch appears in story not merely as a villain with a target, but as a pressure in history. Worlds fall to Khorne in fire and blood. Worlds rot under Nurgle. Worlds lose themselves in excess to Slaanesh. But worlds touched by Tzeentch become paranoid, divided, feverishly ambitious, full of secret societies, hidden libraries, competing prophecies, impossible uprisings, and elites who think they are using forbidden knowledge right up until they discover they were only one instrument among thousands. His realm within the warp reflects this nature. The descriptions vary in imagery, but the essential impression is consistent. Impossible architecture, shifting stairways, crystalline labyrinths, changing horizons, colors and flames beyond mortal comprehension, and a landscape that refuses to remain fixed. This is not just decoration. It is theology in visual form. Tzeentch exists in contradiction. His domain tells you that truth under him is provisional, that maps lie, and that arrival was never the point. At the center of this image stands the crystal labyrinth and the impossible fortress, symbols of hidden knowledge, denied access, and mysteries that deepen the farther one travels. Even the idea of reaching the center is suspect. Tzeentch is not a god who guards a treasure and fears thieves. He is the kind of god who may place the treasure behind 9,000 doors because the search itself nourishes him more than any single result. Already we can sense the shape of his desire, but to get closer, we need to look at his titles and what they imply. The Changer of Ways is one of his most famous names. It suggests not random chaos, but directed transformation. A way exists, and he changes it. Fate points one direction, and he bends it elsewhere. This title presents Tzeentch not as blind entropy, but as intervention in process. He does not just knock pieces off the board. He changes the rules, swaps the labels, gives the weakest piece a secret move, and lets everyone believe the game is still the same. The architect of fate is even more revealing. Architect's design. Fate in 40K is often portrayed as mutable, but dangerous to tamper with. Tzeentch does not simply read destiny. He drafts revisions. He constructs outcomes by means of endless layered causes. This means his will is not only destructive, but compositional. He is building something. The problem is that the blueprint never stays still. The Great Conspirator tells us something else. Conspiracy only exists where there are minds that can be manipulated, truths that can be hidden, and systems that can be infiltrated. Khorne can work through a berserker without subtlety. Nurgle can consume a population through plague and spiritual collapse. Tzeentch prefers networks. He wants cults in the underhives, scholars in hidden vaults, commanders with sealed orders, inquisitors keeping one secret too many, and diviners convinced they alone understand the larger picture. If everyone knows the truth, intrigue dies. If one person knows everything, manipulation narrows. Tzeentch flourishes in unequal knowledge, in partial revelation. And then there is perhaps his strangest association, hope. This is one of the most important and most unsettling aspects of Tzeentch in canon. Hope sounds noble. It sounds human. It sounds like the opposite of damnation. But in the warp, emotions do not remain clean. Hope can become desperate bargaining. Ambition can become obsession. Curiosity can become sacrilege. The wish for a better future can become willingness to risk anything, hide anything, betray anyone. Tzeentch feeds on the gap between what is and what might be. Every person who cannot accept the present as final, who reaches for the hidden lever, the forbidden formula, the unsanctioned ritual, the dangerous alliance, is stepping into his shadow, whether they know it or not. So what does Tzeentch want from mortals? He wants their striving. He wants them dissatisfied. He wants them searching for doors that should remain closed. A stagnant, resigned civilization is less useful to him than one full of dreamers, schemers, reformers, heretics, and desperate survivors. In a grim galaxy where hope itself can be weaponized, Tzeentch is the god who whispers that one more move could change everything. This gives him a uniquely intimate relationship with the Imperium. The Imperium of man is oppressive, ancient, brutal, and rigid beyond belief. It crushes innovation, fears mutation, censors knowledge, and treats independent thought as a threat. And yet, because it is so stagnant, it creates the exact pressure that feeds Tzeentch. On hive worlds, billions dream of escape. In the Adeptus Mechanicus, forbidden curiosity simmers beneath dogma. In the Inquisition, secret knowledge is hoarded by people already half convinced that only they can bear the burden of dangerous truth. In the Navis Nobilite, among sanctioned psychers, in the libraries of proscribed texts, in the ambitions of planetary nobles and would-be rebels, Tzeentch finds endless openings. He does not need everyone to worship him. He barely needs anyone to know his name. A lie told for advancement, a hidden experiment, a betrayal justified by the future good it might achieve, a bargain struck in fear, a psychic talent indulged in secret, an officer altering reports to shape events. All of these are tiny ripples toward him. The Imperium fights change because change threatens order. Tzeentch thrives because order can never hold completely. To see this more clearly, we should look at his demons, because demons reveal the logic of their gods. The Lords of Change are perhaps the purest expression of Tzeentch's mind available to mortal understanding. Vast, avian, majestic, terrifying, these greater daemons are masters of sorcery, prophecy, riddles, and manipulation. Their role is not merely to destroy enemies through warp fire, though they can. They are planners, deceivers, and interpreters of impossible futures. They often appear as beings who know countless possible outcomes and treat certainty as a toy for lesser creatures. The important part is that they do not simply carry out clear military objectives in the way a mortal general might. They are instruments of layered intention. A defeat may hide a larger gain. A revealed plot may conceal the true plot. A prophecy may be given precisely because it will be misunderstood. Lords of Change embodied Tzeentch's relationship with knowledge. Knowledge is never neutral under him. Information exists to alter behavior. Revelation is bait, leverage, or ignition. If Tzeentch wants anything concrete, one answer is this: he wants minds entangled in meanings they cannot safely master. Then there are the iconic lesser demons of Tzeentch, the pink horrors, blue horrors, and brimstone horrors. Their bizarre manner, capering energy, and tendency to split into smaller forms when destroyed make them seem almost comic at a distance. But the symbolism is sharp. You cut one thing down, and it becomes many things. You impose a clean end, and receive multiplication. Disorder under Tzeentch is generative. Solutions proliferate complications. Even his lesser servants make the point that finality is difficult, and fragmentation can be more useful than unity. Flamers of Tzeentch add another layer. Warp fire under Tzeentch is not just flame. It is transformative destruction. It burns reality, identity, and form. This again points to his desire not simply to kill, but to alter. Khorne's violence is direct. Tzeentch's violence rewrites. He would rather leave behind mutation, madness, prophecy, and unstable new conditions than a simple corpse count. The daemonic hierarchy also reveals something crucial about motive. Tzeentch empowers service, but service under him is profoundly unsafe. His followers are promoted, changed, exalted, and discarded according to patterns no one else can fully read. He rewards ambition because ambition feeds him, but a servant who becomes too stable, too secure, too certain of favor has already become vulnerable. In this sense, Tzeentch does not even want his own side to become settled. He wants constant internal motion. Rivalries among sorcerers, coups within cults, hidden contests between daemons, all of it keeps the current alive. This is also why discussing Tzeentch in terms of winning can be misleading. If he conquered everything in a simple sense, if all became transparent servants enacting one final design, then the very qualities that define him would begin to collapse. Intrigue requires uncertainty. Hope requires incompletion. Ambition requires hierarchy or possibility. Sorcery thrives on mysteries not yet exhausted. Tzeentch can seek supremacy in the great game, certainly, but absolute final supremacy may be self-defeating. He is strongest where outcomes are contested. That brings us to the great game itself, the eternal struggle among the four major chaos gods. Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh each expand through mortal emotion and spiritual corruption, but each also limits the others. Their rivalries are not simple alliances and enmities, though some pairings are more naturally opposed. Tzeentch is frequently framed as opposed to Nurgle in an especially philosophical way. Nurgle represents decay, endurance, acceptance, and the grim comfort of inevitable decline. Tzeentch represents possibility, transformation, schemes, and the refusal to remain what one is. Nurgle says all things rot, so surrender and endure. Tzeentch says all things can change, so strive and gamble. This opposition helps answer our question. Tzeentch wants a universe that never settles into resignation. He wants instability, yes, but not aimless turbulence alone. He wants beings to believe that action matters, that secrets matter, that hidden knowledge can still shift the balance. That belief can damn them. It can empower them. It can make them dangerous. But above all, it keeps the game in motion. His opposition to Khorne is different. Khorne despises sorcery and values straightforward violence, martial honor twisted into bloodthirst, and direct dominance. Tzeentch values magic, manipulation, and indirection. One seeks the honest blow, the other the poisoned truth. Yet even here, the relationship is not merely thematic. In practical law, the forces of chaos are often riven by these tensions. Tzeentchian warbands may engineer conditions that make war erupt elsewhere. Khornate berserkers may destroy intricate plans with brute fury. Tzeentch therefore wants a galaxy where conflict exists, but not conflict so simple that calculation becomes irrelevant. With Slaanesh, the overlap concerns excess, knowledge, and obsession, but the distinction remains. Slaanesh desires experience intensified beyond reason, perfection pursued until corruption, appetite without limit. Tzeentch desires transformation through desire, curiosity, and schemes. Slaanesh can be immediate, sensory, and consuming. Tzeentch is deferred, cerebral, anticipatory. If Slaanesh asks what you long to feel, Tzeentch asks what you long to become. This is why Tzeentch's mortal worshippers are so varied. His cultists are not one archetype. Some are scholars and psychers. Some are political revolutionaries. Some are nobles seeking advantage. Some are mutants embracing strange revelation. Some are generals convinced the old order must be replaced. Some are simple survivors who turn to forbidden means because they had nowhere else to turn. Tzeentch does not only tempt the obviously wicked. He often tempts the dissatisfied, the visionary, the trapped, and the curious. In Imperial records, Tzeentchian corruption often spreads through secret societies and layered initiations. A group may begin with harmless-sounding goals: reform, knowledge, mutual aid, hidden spirituality, resistance against oppression. Then the symbols become stranger, the teachings become more selective, ritual language appears. A leader begins to speak of destiny. Members are told they are chosen to remake the world. By the time overt mutation or sorcery emerges, many participants are already morally committed, compromised, blackmailed, or spiritually entangled. This pattern is very important. Tzeentch wants people to cross lines gradually, while telling themselves they remain in control. This is mirrored on a grand scale in some of the most famous Tzeentch-aligned forces in the setting, especially the Thousand Sons. No discussion of Tzeentch's motives can ignore them, because the Legion's history is perhaps the single greatest case study in how the Changer of Ways operates. The Thousand Sons, led by Magnus the Red, were among the most psychically gifted of the Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade. They pursued knowledge, sorcery, and understanding in a civilization that increasingly feared uncontrolled psychic power. Magnus himself sought to serve the Emperor, to use knowledge for the Imperium's benefit, and to transcend ignorance. Yet this same drive led him, again and again, toward catastrophe. The flesh change that afflicted the Legion, the desperate search for remedies, Magnus's bargain with powers he did not fully master, the Council of Nicaea, and the Censure of Sorcery, the attempt to warn the Emperor through the warp, the catastrophic breaching of wards, the burning of Prosperen, and the long descent into chaos, all reveal the same cruel pattern. Tzeentch does not always lure by promising obvious evil. He lures by offering the means to solve real problems. He offers a cure, insight, or a path around blind dogma. The cost is only visible too late. If you ask what Tzeentch wanted from Magnus, one answer is that he wanted exactly what Magnus already wanted, only turned 1 degree further each time. More knowledge, more mastery, more intervention, more confidence that he, unlike others, could control the dangerous thing. This is perhaps Tzeentch's most reliable method. He does not always replace a person's desire with a foreign desire. He radicalizes what is already there. The rubric of Ahriman continues this pattern. Ahriman, seeking to save his brothers from mutation, enacted a mighty spell that indeed solved one problem while creating another horror, reducing many thousand suns to dust-filled rubricae bound within armor. Once again, Tzeentchian logic appears in perfect form. The attempt to master change produces a more profound and tragic change.